The morning sun painted the sky over São Paulo in a soft orange hue. The city hummed with energy, buses rolling past murals and music drifting from open windows. But inside a tiny apartment tucked behind a bakery, Isabella Montero, a 17-year-old girl with long dark curls and a shy smile, stood before a cracked mirror holding a brush like a microphone. Her reflection trembled as she whispered the lyrics of All of Me. Greater than 'cause all of me loves all of you. Her voice was pure, fragile yet filled with emotion that made even the silence feel alive. The old apartment walls had heard her voice 1,000 times, but today it sounded different. Today, every note carried the weight of a dream she had nurtured since childhood. On the table lay a small folded letter, the audition pass for the Voice Brasil. It had arrived 2 weeks ago, written in Portuguese and printed on thin white paper. Her mother, Lucia, had framed it with her hands trembling, whispering prayers of gratitude. For a girl who had grown up singing in the bakery's back room, this was more than an invitation. It was a lifeline. The weight of her world. Lucia sat by the window sewing an old dress, the rhythmic sound of the needle punctuating the silence. She was a woman who had worked her entire life, cleaning houses, sewing clothes, baking bread, but her greatest labor was raising Isabella alone. Voce esta pronta, meu amor? Lucia asked softly. Are you ready, my love? Isabella turned, her eyes bright but uncertain. May, what if they don't like me? Lucia smiled, setting her needle aside. They will not only like you. They will feel you. That's what music is for, not to impress, but to touch. Isabella walked to her mother and knelt before her. She pressed her forehead against Lucia's knee and whispered, I wish Papai could see this. Lucia's hand froze for a moment, her heart tightening. Her husband, João, had been a guitarist, a street musician who used to play near Avenida Paulista, always telling his daughter, the world listens when your heart sings. He had passed away 3 years ago, leaving behind his old guitar and a silence that only Isabella's voice could fill. Lucia brushed her daughter's hair. He will see, meu bem. From up there, he's already saving you a seat. The journey to the stage. They took the early bus to the audition venue, a massive glass building filled with banners that read, The Voice Brasil, Season 12. Isabella clutched her guitar case, her fingers fidgeting on the worn leather handle. Around her, hundreds of contestants buzzed with nervous energy, singers of every kind, some laughing loudly, others rehearsing quietly in corners. She watched them, feeling smaller by the minute. Her dress was simple, borrowed shoes slightly too big. But her eyes carried something no one else had, a quiet fire born from hardship and hope. A staff member handed her a numbered badge, number 347, and told her to wait in the green room. The walls were covered with photos of past winners, their smiles immortalized in glory. She studied them, wondering if she could ever belong among them. Beside her sat a girl with heavy makeup and sparkly boots. You nervous? She asked. Isabella smiled faintly. A little. What song are you doing? All of Me, Isabella said, her voice almost a whisper. The girl grinned. John Legend. Bold choice. That song's a killer if you can't reach the high notes. Isabella nodded but said nothing. Deep down, she wasn't singing it for perfection, she was singing it for meaning. For her father. For her mother. For the nights she cried herself to sleep dreaming of a stage she'd never seen. Backstage moments. When her number was finally called, Isabella stood. Her legs felt like air. Lucia squeezed her hand tightly. Remember what I told you, her mother whispered. Sing with your soul. Isabella nodded, then walked toward the glowing corridor that led to the stage. The hum of the crowd beyond the curtains grew louder with every step. The smell of stage lights and polished floors filled her senses. A stagehand adjusted her mic and whispered, Good luck, sweetheart. She stepped forward, and suddenly the light hit her face. The stage. The stage was enormous. The logo of the Voice Brasil blazed in red and white. The judges sat in their iconic spinning chairs, 4 of Brazil's biggest stars. The audience behind them shimmered under the glow of studio lights, a sea of expectant faces. The host introduced her. Next up, we have contestant number 347, from São Paulo, 17-year-old Isabella Montero. Applause rippled through the crowd. Isabella bowed slightly, her hands trembling on the microphone. One of the judges leaned forward. Olá, Isabella. What will you be singing for us today? She took a deep breath. I'd like to sing, All of Me, by John Legend. There was a short pause, the kind that makes hearts race. The judge smiled warmly. Beautiful song. Take your time. We're ready when you are. Dash dash dash. The first note. The piano track began softly in the background. Isabella closed her eyes. Her father's voice echoed in her mind. Sing like no one's watching, Fila. Because even when no one is, your voice still matters. Her lips parted, and the first note escaped, trembling, raw, real. Greater than what would I do without your smart mouth. The audience grew still. Even the cameras seemed to slow, as though the world itself wanted to listen. Her voice wasn't trained like a professional singer's. It had tiny cracks, soft breaths, and that human imperfection that makes you believe every word. Each lyric carried her pain, her memories, and her love. By the time she reached the chorus, greater than 'cause all of me, loves all of you, the room was silent except for her voice. Lucia stood backstage, tears rolling down her cheeks. She pressed her hands together as though praying, not for her daughter to win, but for her to feel seen. Dash dash dash. A moment of magic. Midway through the song, something happened, something no one expected. The lights dimmed softly, a spotlight focused on her face, and the air seemed to shimmer. Her voice swelled with a quiet power that made people forget where they were. The audience leaned forward, many with wet eyes. A child in the front row whispered to his mother, "She sounds like an angel." By the final note, even the judges, seasoned artists who had heard thousands of voices, sat frozen. She held the microphone close, her voice trembling on the last line. Greater than I give you all of me, and you give me all of you, oh. The note lingered, hanging in the air like a whispered prayer. Dash dash dash. The reaction. For a full heartbeat, there was silence. Then, boom, all 4 chairs turned at once. The crowd exploded. People stood, clapping, shouting her name. The lights flared golden. Lucia fell to her knees backstage, sobbing into her hands. Isabella gasped, her hands flying to her mouth. She couldn't believe it. All 4 judges, all 4, had turned for her. One of them spoke first. Isabella, that was not just singing. That was truth. Another leaned forward, eyes glistening. I don't know what you've been through, but I felt every word. You sang like you were healing something. She smiled through tears. I was. The judges laughed softly, touched by her honesty. The audience chanted her name, Isa. 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 Dash dash dash. Backstage embrace. When she walked off stage, Lucia ran to her. They hugged tightly, shaking, laughing, crying all at once. You did it, Fila. You did it. Lucia whispered into her hair. Isabella clung to her mother. He heard me, May. I know he did. Lucia nodded, tears glimmering. Yes, my love. He's smiling now. Dash dash dash. Fade out. That night, as the show replayed on TV, millions watched a simple Brazilian girl sing, All of Me. But those who truly listened, really listened, didn't just hear a song. They heard the story of a girl who turned her pain into music, her fear into courage, and her dream into reality. The world would remember her not for her perfection, but for the truth in her voice. The night after her audition, Isabella Montero couldn't sleep. The city outside buzzed with horns and laughter, but her mind replayed every moment from the stage, the lights, the judges' faces, the way her heart had raced so violently she thought it might burst. She sat on her narrow bed, the glow of the streetlights spilling through the curtain. Her old guitar leaned against the wall, still carrying a faint scent of her father's cologne. She reached for it instinctively, tracing her fingers over the worn wood, the tiny crack near the sound hole where her father's ring had once struck too hard during a song. She whispered, Pai, eu consegui, Dad, I did it. Then she played a few quiet chords, the same ones her father had taught her when she was 6. They weren't perfect, but they carried something richer, memory. Dash dash dash. A memory of the sea. Long before the stage lights and applause, there had been salt in the air and the sound of waves. The family had once lived in a small fishing town called Parachi, a coastal jewel where music floated between narrow cobblestone streets. Her father, João Montero, was a dreamer, a guitarist who sang for tourists at beach cafes. He didn't have fame or money, but when he played, people stopped to listen. His music was soft, full of emotion, much like Isabella's voice would one day become. Isabella would sit by his side, a little girl with sand between her toes, humming along as he strummed. He'd smile down at her and say, "You've got the soul of a singer, Mina Fila. One day, the world will listen." Her mother, Lucia, would laugh from behind the counter of their small bakery stall. "Let the world wait. First, she needs to finish school." Those were golden days, sunlight, laughter, the smell of bread and sea. Until the storm came. The night that changed everything. It was a summer evening when the rain refused to stop. The wind howled through the streets, rattling windows. João had left for a late-night performance at a nearby inn, promising to bring home some extra money for Isabella's birthday. Lucia had begged him not to go. "The sea's angry tonight. Please, stay." But João smiled that same calm smile. "Don't worry, amor. I'll be careful." He kissed Isabella's forehead. "Sleep, Mina Princessa. Tomorrow we'll sing together." She remembered standing at the door, barefoot, watching him disappear into the rain. His guitar was strapped across his back. His silhouette faded, swallowed by the storm. He never came home. The next morning, the police found the wreckage of his small motorbike near a flooded bridge. The guitar was broken. The world that had once been filled with music turned silent. The silence that followed. Lucia didn't speak for days. She worked in a haze, baking bread at dawn, sewing at night. The bakery's laughter faded. Bills piled up. The sea that once sounded like a song now felt like a wound that wouldn't close. Isabella, only 14, stopped singing. She couldn't bear it. Every melody reminded her of him. For a year, she walked around quiet, eyes dull, grades falling. At night, she would sit on the balcony and listen to the ocean in the distance, her fingers tracing the strings of the broken guitar that had been found with him. One night, she whispered, "I hate music. I hate it for taking him away." Lucia overheard her and sat beside her. Her mother's eyes were red, her voice cracked from exhaustion. "My love," she said softly, "music didn't take him. Music was the only thing that kept him alive. It was how he loved us. If you stop singing, he'll die twice, once in this world, and once in your heart." Those words stayed. Finding her voice again. Months later, at her small high school, there was a charity event for the victims of flooding in another city. Her teacher asked if anyone would perform. No one volunteered, until Lucia, who had been helping in the kitchen, whispered, "You should sing for them." Isabella shook her head. "I can't. My voice, it's gone." Her mother placed her hand over her chest. "It's not gone, Fila. It's here. You're just afraid to open it again." That night, Isabella took her father's old guitar, repaired but still scarred, and sat by the window. She tried a few chords, her voice trembling as she hummed, "All of Me." It had been her parents' song, the one João used to sing to Lucia while baking bread or fixing his guitar strings. She didn't know all the lyrics, so she made up words in Portuguese, "Todo o meu amor é seu." For the first time since his death, she cried while singing, and it didn't feel like pain anymore. It felt like release. The street corner. A few months later, on her way home from school, she saw an old man playing guitar near a crowded bus stop. His hat was empty, but he smiled as if he were rich. Something about him, the rhythm, the courage, pulled her closer. She stood and listened. When he finished, she whispered, "I used to sing, too." He looked up. "Used to?" She hesitated, then said, "I can't anymore." The old man chuckled. "Then sing now. The city's noisy, no one will notice." But someone did. She began to sing softly, barely audible over the traffic, "What would I do without your smart mouth?" Pedestrians slowed. A little girl tugged her mother's hand. A man stopped scrolling his phone. When she finished, a few clapped. A woman dropped coins into the old man's hat. He winked at Isabella and said, "See." The world listened. That was the first time she sang outside her house since her father died.